Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Lynne Krupa. Lynne is an advocate for people affected by Charcot-Marie-Tooth syndrome. So you're affected by this disorder that's fairly rare?
It's not as rare as you'd think. I mean, it's not very well known. It affects 1 in 2,500 people, 2.8 million worldwide. So it's not that rare, but most people haven't heard of it.
And what is the nature of it?
It's a progressive disorder that slowly destroys the nerve cells leading to a person's extremities. Lower arms, hands, lower legs, feet, causing nerve damage, causing muscle wasting, affects balance. Some people it causes pain. In some cases it's debilitating. People have to sit, they're in a wheelchair, bracing. So it varies person to person.
What's the range in terms of how old people tend to be when they notice it?
Well, that varies also. I was diagnosed when I was 12, but there's others who are diagnosed in their 40s and 50s, and then children as young as, 2, 3 years old, so it really varies.
And you mentioned it's something that necessarily is not so rare as much as maybe not known.
Correct.
What did it used to be thought of as, was it associated with something else?
No, it's just that CMT is something that people could almost be living with and be unaware that they have it. Some people, because they have the thin calves and maybe their balance is off, they might not think anything of it. They could have a very mild case of it. Because it is inherited, there's many family members who may have it, and depending on how they deal with it and live with it, they may not get a medical diagnosis, so they might not know that they have it. The medical community doesn't know a whole lot about it. So that's what we're trying to do.
What sort of doctors are able to be the most helpful? Like what specialties are they in?
Initially, you want to see a neurologist because they're able to conduct a nerve conduction test and EMG, which will determine whether or not you do have CMT. And also there's DNA testing. And then once you see a neurologist, you also physical therapist, occupational therapist. Those doctors are who you're going to see first.
How did it affect you growing up? I know you said you were around 12. Tell us about that.
Well, I just remember having the testing done and the doctor telling my mother, well, have her wear high-top sneakers and don't stop her from doing anything that she wants to do, which is great, but high-top sneakers don't give you a whole lot of support. So, balance, spraining my ankles, not being able to do certain things in gym class, not wearing heels. Nothing major when you put it in perspective, but, I knew that there was something different about the way I walked and the way I ran and, and just how my legs looked.
Did you get involved in any sports while you were young?
No, I didn't. I rode my bike a lot, which was, good exercise for me and I enjoyed doing, but as far as team sports, no, I didn't. At
some point you realized your son maybe was affected.
I did, because I'm the only one in my family who has this. I guess I'm what you'd call a spontaneous mutation, because typically, there's several generations who have CMT, but nobody in my family, or at least that I know of or, am aware of. I was in the dark about CMT, something I'd been living with for the majority of my life. So when my son was in middle school, he started tripping over his feet, his gait changed, and even his teachers were concerned because he was, knocking into desks. And, I thought, oh, maybe it's a growth spurt. Brought him to the pediatrician. She had him run up and down the hall, and he looked fine. And it wasn't until she asked him to stand on his toes that the light bulb went off. And I said to her, he has what I have, because I've never been able to stand on my toes. And then we brought him to the pediatric neurologist, and sure enough, he had CMT. I didn't even realize I could pass it on to my children.
Again, not much known.
Right,
so
exactly.
At some point you realized it had a name, but then you didn't necessarily understand possible implications in
Right.
terms of it being
Right.
able to be passed on. And so he was about the
He was
same
about
age,
the same age,
right?
exactly, about the same age, yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do you think that maybe influenced him in terms of what activities he had, or?
Well, it definitely affected him because he started, showing some more signs of it, and he played baseball, and he had a very good arm, and he pitched, but, you need balance when you're a pitcher, and that became a struggle, and even running became more of a struggle. I give him a lot of credit because he played through probably the first couple, maybe year or two of high school, on rec teams. But when he got to the high school, and he was, he wanted to be involved in the sport. And I said, Ty, you have a really strong arm. Why don't you maybe go out for track and field, some of the throwing events? And he did that. He became a javelin thrower. And freshman year, he set a freshman record at the high school. And, he was learning to adapt to his limitations, and he did really well.
Is it progressive for most people?
It is a progressive disease. Yeah. It slowly destroys the nerve cells, and it progresses at different rates for different people, and it's something that unfortunately you can't predict.
So you don't know who's going to get it necessarily, what age they might get it, how
Right.
fast or whatever the
Well,
course
within
would
a
be.
family, you know that there's a 50-50 chance.
Oh, okay.
You don't know as far as how fast it will progress. And there's 90 different mutations of CMT, so it really varies. And that makes it even more difficult to find treatments. What the CMTA is doing now is they're focusing on the types that most people have.
And let's talk about your role as a chapter leader.
Yes, I'm a branch leader for the Charcot-Marie-Tooth Association. Once Tyler was diagnosed and I realized I didn't know much about it, I found out more information from the CMTA website. And I saw that they had branches throughout the United States, but there wasn't one in Connecticut. And I don't know what possessed me, but, because this was definitely outside my comfort zone. But I thought, that's something that maybe I should become involved with. So I contacted them, and almost 5 years ago started the branch. And our very first meeting, we must have had probably about maybe 30 people. It was great because it was the first time that I'd really met other people who had CMT. I think most of the people in the room felt the same way. It was great just to talk to other people who understand, the difficulties you have, and it was great to meet other people in the area.
Yeah, it's like a support group.
Yep, it's
Right.
a support group, supporting each other and providing information and resources and ideas. If something works for one person, it might work for another. Talking about different doctors who we've seen or who've helped, and, or maybe some who haven't. But we're try to be a resource for each other.
You have periodic meetings,
Yeah, we meet about 4 or 5 times a year in North Haven.
and then you have some events.
Yes, we have some fundraisers. We've had 4 fundraisers over the years, raised over $52,000. Very proud to say. And we had, first it was a Slice of Hope. It was a pizza type party, and pizza and pies. And then we had a grill and chill at New Haven Country Club. That was fun, craft beer and barbecue. And then the past 2 years, we've had a cycle walk run for CMT out on the canal line in Hamden at Brooksville Park. And every year that's gotten more people involved, and it's spreading awareness too, in addition to raising research funds.
I'm involved with the Hospital for Special Care, and I
Yes.
understand they were one of their speakers.
Yes, we've
At
had
an event?
a doctor from the Hospital for Special Care and also a occupational therapist. And it was great to find out that there's another resource in the state for, people with CMT, that they have a whole neuromuscular center there, which I knew nothing about.
Okay, and it's this outpatient area that they've had for treating many body system issues is pretty new and expanded in terms of what they're able to do with how many people they're able to see, and so everyone's really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think they've just recently gotten involved with doing some research also.
Yes, they do have a research arm.
So,
they have terrific people
Yeah, very
there.
exciting.
Great.
So,
Super.
yeah, I was very happy to learn of another resource.
Great. I'm glad I could be helpful.
Yes.
Let's talk about you a little bit and your background. Okay, so you earned a journalism degree.
Yes, I did.
What was your first job?
Well, first job related to that would be I was a production editor at a medical publisher in East Norwalk. It was an imprint of Simon & Schuster. I think it was called Appleton and Lang. I started from from manuscript, working with the authors, proofreaders, and editors, all the way through to bound books. So it was a good experience. So.
And where did you work the longest?
I was at Union Trust Company, which became several other banks in my years there with that whole, change in the banking industry.
Mergers
Oh,
and,
yeah. I was the communications coordinator there, wrote and edited the company newsletter and employee magazine, press releases. And that was a great job because it got me out of the office, meeting people throughout the branch system and different departments. It wasn't just stay at your desk every day. That was a really fun opportunity.
And now that you're describing that, I'm thinking that could have been a little seed in terms of helping you get comfortable maybe with being like a chapter leader and just branching out and, right?
Maybe.
I mean, those things we do sometimes lay some groundwork.
I think doing the writing was probably a little easier because you go in there and you know what information you need to extract and you have the questions. So you're really doing more listening than anything. Whereas, being the branch leader, you're kind of out there front and center and doing the talkings. A little different.
New level.
Yeah, new level.
And more recently, you have done some freelancing.
I did. I guess it came around again. I was doing some freelance for Yale New Haven Hospital, some pieces for their nursing update and their pediatric update that goes out to pediatricians, and then the Tommy Fund newsletter also.
Again, the medical
I know.
field, right?
I know, and I recently, well, not recently, but I found myself taking a writing course with Jane Stern, the cookbook author, just because I felt like written about banking and money and medicine, and those aren't really, areas that are of big, I don't want to say not so much interest, but just not passions. Or so I thought, well, food writing, that might be interesting. So that was a whole different area for me to explore, and that was fun. And she was quite a character.
She is. Was it a webinar or in person?
No, it was in person at Gateway. Yeah.
She appeared at a writers' conference I went to that was sponsored by
Oh,
the
did
Hartford Current years ago.
Oh,
So she
okay.
was one of the sessions that you could sign up for. It had to, more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
Absolutely hysterical. And then they did make a movie, I believe, based on
Yes.
one of her books.
That, wasn't that with Kathy Bates? Mm-hmm.
And how she became an ambulance
Yes, because she does
EMT
that.
person.
Right.
And as I remember it, it was to get out of her own comfort zone.
Right.
It was something that she, practically fainted at the sight of blood and just never saw herself doing
Yeah.
something physical like that. And, not everyone was really so sure she was going to make it.
Right.
And she did.
Yeah, she talked a lot about that. Yeah, she's...
So a great example of
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
like yourself doing something new. And you've also raised 2 great kids and you've volunteered,
Yes.
right? So
yes.
let's hear a little bit about your volunteer activities.
I've been volunteering for Read to Grow for several years. It's a literacy organization concerned with bringing language and literacy to children from birth, involved with 12 hospitals in the state. Also books for babies and books for kids, getting books out to children in schools and daycare centers, waiting rooms of hospitals, just making sure that kids have a library of books. It's kind of hard to think of children not having any books, when your own children, you make sure that they have plenty of books to read. but a lot of kids don't. That's been a very important organization to be involved with. And then recently I began tutoring at New Haven Reads, and it's a one-on-one tutoring after-school program that's free to the families who sign up. And that's been a good experience also.
And what ages are the kids?
They are from probably kindergarten, maybe even through high school.
What subjects do you tutor on?
It's reading.
I was going to say math, science,
No,
information
just
technology.
reading. Just
Okay.
reading, just reading.
Did they provide any help?
Like getting you started?
Yeah.
No, they didn't, but there's certain things that you need to do with them. They have this computer program they need to do for like the first 20 minutes, and then a workbook, and they need to read, and then you have the last 10 minutes to play a game. So you have certain things that you need to do with them. So, but
It's structured.
it's structured.
And how often do you do that?
Once or twice a week.
Nice.
So
Do you tend to have the same kids?
I do. I have the same girl at least since, in the fall I've had a fifth grader. It's nice to, to have that one-on-one relationship.
So you had a period of time where you've been a stay-at-home mom,
Yeah.
doing different, perhaps freelancing and the volunteering, and you had your career more traditional in terms of working in the office and out in the field, et cetera. How would you compare those two experiences?
Well, I guess similarities, you need to be organized. You need to have priorities, what you're going to get done first. Definitely a little more, freedom as far as being home and what you want to do when you want to do. No, I mean, there's a lot of experiences and traits that you need to have, I guess, for both.
Okay. Transferable skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
what I was looking for.
Great. Now, we've been in a book group together for
Yes,
close to
almost
20 years.
Yes.
And we have our cheering section here this evening.
Yes, we do.
What do you enjoy about the book group? Talk to me about
Oh
books.
my gosh, I love the book group. I hate it when I have to miss a meeting, and I think I've maybe missed one or two in nearly 20 years. It's just been great. I mean, we're not all the same age and not all the same background, yet you become this close group of women who are there for one another through, good and bad, and we share our thoughts on the books most of the time.
Most of the time.
No, it's just been a wonderful experience. It's an important part of my life.
Well, it's a constant.
Yeah.
When you think
yeah.
of almost, let's say, 20 years. That's a
yeah,
long period
yeah.
of time, couple stages of life
Yeah.
involved in that.
Yeah.
And what types of books do you enjoy the most?
Oh, about relationships and strong women. I know when I was pregnant with my daughter, a coworker gave me Barbara Kingsolver's The Bean Trees, and that got me hooked on her work. And so probably one of my favorite is the Poisonwood Bible. Yeah, lots of favorites. I mean, we've read so many, Historical fiction's always a favorite. Devil in the White City was a great book.
Yes.
But then I loved, the popular Me Before You, so kind of varies. And what's great is that it forces you to read something you may not necessarily have picked up yourself, but you could end up surprisingly enjoying it, So.
And you've been our historian in terms of tracking the
Yep,
books.
I keep track, yeah.
And about how many books have we read?
Oh my gosh, I haven't counted them. I should do that. Because some years we read more than others.
Right. I would say probably close to 200.
You know what?
If you say 20
I
years
will-
and like 10 meetings and
I
a
will,
different book
I will
each
count
time.
them and let you know.
Okay, that's great. Now, as women move into their 50s, I've got this idea that we can call it our zenith years because it's the pinnacle, and we pull everything together, and those experiences and traits and transferable skills and those threads throughout. I mean, you've been involved with reading and writing and editing and through many different areas of what you've done. What things are you pondering in terms of what you might like to do? Any ideas of things you'd like to go after?
Oh, that's the million-dollar question. I'm thinking about that constantly. I guess the main thing is I want to find things that bring purpose to my life. And whether that's, tutoring or, providing people with information about CMT as, an advocate. It's wait and see, see what each new day brings and.
Well, how recently did you take this course with Jane Stern?
Oh, it was probably about 2 years ago.
All right,
So,
well, that's not a terribly long period
No.
of time. I mean, that to me is a good example of
right,
kind of trying something and seeing.
right.
You didn't go there necessarily with a specific end result, right? In
No,
mind?
I didn't. I just wanted to try a different type of writing. In the back of my mind, I would like to try to do different types of writing. So I really should, sit myself down and, start doing that.
Julia Cameron has this now famous book. It's coming up on 20 years. It's getting reissued, called The Artist's Way.
Mm-hmm.
And she was involved in movies. She was married to, I think it's Martin Scorsese.
Mm-hmm.
And she says if you spend the very beginning part of your day doing 3 pages a day, like journaling,
Right.
morning pages, she calls them. Have you ever heard of that? It helps
Right.
kind of pull things out of the well
Mm-hmm.
and gives, I guess, signals to yourself that you want to bring out things and gets you
Right.
kind of in the writing mode first thing. So I think that's a very intriguing approach.
Well, it's funny. I think since I've been probably in middle school, high school, I've always had a date book or I've written what's happened during the day. I really think nothing of it, but it's like I really have been writing almost every day for years. I mean, almost, I guess the Twitter version on paper.
well,
I
you're
mean,
a
because there's
journal
not very
person,
many,
right?
not very many sentences, but just reading that, I will remember what happened that day. So.
Do you look back at it?
Oh yeah, I
sometimes?
do. I
Yeah.
do.
I do colored pencils. Oh, that's when that started. Okay. Maybe you want to try the 3 pages a day, because I
That's
think
a good idea.
to me, because I try to do it, it forces you to just write a little more. It
Right.
gives you a little structured goal. Works for
Right.
me. Yeah.
Because it's so easy to be distracted.
Right.
Yeah.
And she says, don't get too much into the technology and all that in the morning. Try to do it
Right.
to get kind of
Right.
tap into the subconscious,
Right.
where all that good stuff lives.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
In terms of $1 million question,
Oh, no, another
I
one.
always ask, what advice would you give to your, say, 25-year-old self and your maybe 40-year-old self?
Oh, wow.
Dear Lynn.
Oh, geez. Probably to have a little more confidence in yourself, and maybe take a few more risks. Don't be afraid to try new things. That would probably go 25 and 40. I mean, I just feel like now I'm a little better at, saying, oh, what the hell, who cares, where I don't think you think that way when you're 25. And then 40, my kids were young, and I was probably so focused on them.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, just, I guess, get out of your comfort zone a little more often.
Okay.
So
And you're doing that now.
that's true. So true.
I like to close with a quote, and you provided me with one, which I have not heard from Eleanor
did.
Roosevelt.
I did.
And she said, with the new day comes new strength and new thoughts.
Pretty plain and simple, but, very true.
Well, thank you
Words
very
to live
much.
by.
This has been wonderful, Lynn.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
having
for
me.
sharing your story, and I'm sure our viewers have learned a lot in terms of something very specific
I
about
hope so. And
CMT.
site in
We'll
case.
definitely put your website up.
Website and my information, because I have had people contact me, out of the blue, even some people from Wallingford who, in fact, there was somebody, a child was recently diagnosed and reached out.
Wonderful.
So we're here to help.
There's the purpose.
That's right.
Okay, living with purpose. And thank you so much for watching. Please tune into future episodes of MidLIFE Matters TV to hear other fascinating women share their stories. Georgian Lussier, your host. Thanks again.